It was close to midnight, when dark shadows overcome the light, when sound gives over to silence, when things seen become unseen. A thunderstorm raged outside the small home, with each flash of light revealing momentarily what was normally obscured by the darkness. Inside the small, modest home sat Matthew Worthington, seated in his favorite chair, absorbed in the worn pages of a well-loved novel, his eyes glued to each word as they unfolded the text, only to be interrupted by the occasional streak of lightning just outside his window. Suddenly his breathing became labored. His eyes closed tightly. Placing a hand on his chest, he tried to calm himself as he released a spastic cough into the cold night air. He leaned into the back of the large chair, seeking respite from the unrelenting cough, but the coughing continued, his chest heaving with each breath. Again he closed his eyes, momentarily calming his labored breathing. Just then there was a knock at the front door. With a knowing look in his eyes, he placed the book aside and rose from the chair and moved slowly toward the door. Without hesitation, he opened it. There before him stood a shadowy figure concealed in the darkness, an ominous specter hideous in sight. "I've been expecting you," Matthew said quietly, motioning the specter to enter. He directed the creature to sit at the dinner table. It slowly entered the house, gliding across the floor as if it were weightless. Its frightful appearance was now in full display. Slowly it seated itself at the table. Matthew, struggling to keep his composure, seated himself at the opposite end. The two sat in silence for a moment. "I was wondering when you were going to come," Matthew said. "I was hoping it would be much later." "Would it make any difference?" replied the specter in a thin, hollow voice. "Of course. There's still so much more I would like to do." The specter stared in silence. "Such as?" Matthew, not expecting a response. "To see my daughter get married. To meet my grandchild that's not yet been born." The specter tilted his head. "Even if you live to 100, these things may not pass." Matthew nodding his head. "True. This is true." "What have you done with your life, Matthew Worthington?" the specter said as if to challenge the old man. Matthew stared deep into the eyes of the specter. "I've lived it to the best of my ability. I won't say I lived a perfect life, but I tried. I treated those I encountered with respect, showed kindness when I could, was honest, and above all, loved to the best of my ability." The specter slowly shook his head. "You humans disappoint me. You live your lives for what could be and not what is. You waste your lives away. Only when it's time to die do you find reasons for living. Matthew took a moment to respond. I disagree. Just being is a beautiful gift. Life itself is a dream of endless possibilities. What is and what could be defines what tomorrow will be. And there lies the mystery of life. The mystery of life? Yes. I've heard this all before, sighed the spectre. Since the beginning of humanity, I've sat and watched the futility of man, his arrogance and atrocity towards one another, his so-called contributions to the world, poverty, bigotry, slavery, racism, and war. Matthew lowered his head. All of what you say is true. There are those of whom you speak of, but there are those who strive to make life more beautiful, more considerate for others and themselves. I presume you to be the latter, the spectre mockingly replied. Yes, Matthew said, without hesitation. The spectre leaned into Matthew. Man is selfish and egotistical at his core. He is given abundance and he squanders it on himself. Matthew leans in almost as if to challenge the spectre. You don't think much of humanity. The spectre begins to laugh and falls back in his chair. I will give you a challenge to prove yourself. I will grant you one wish. You may wish for anything concerning the longevity of your life. Anything. Earlier, you wished to see your daughter Mary, to see your unborn grandchild. I will grant you the allowed time, even if these things should not come to pass. Now, prove to me that man is not selfish. Matthew paused for a moment to collect his thoughts. I wish for one day that you could be me, to truly see and feel what I experience. For you to live one day, that would be my wish. The spectre, clearly taken aback, remained silent. You have spoken well, Mr. Worthington. You have spoken well. I will leave you as I have promised to live out the remainder of your life. Suddenly the room was illuminated with a flash of white lightning, followed by the distant roll of thunder. Death had disappeared. Matthew rises slowly and crosses to his comfortable chair and sits. He thinks for a moment, then picks up his book and begins to read.